Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fangs for the Fantasy, our weekly broadcast where we look at all things urban fantasy all through our social justice lens. As ever, we've got a vast amount to cover, so you're here with me, Paul, and Renee, and we're going to hit the ground running. Hi, Renee.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, and let's start with True Blood since we didn't do True Blood last week.
Okay, I really think that it was a nice wrap up with
Tara and Letty
Tara
May.
and Letty May. You can see they're trying to bring a close to stories like that. And it was good, you know. It was emotional, and I finally felt a little bit of closure and, someone in pain and mourning for her, because you had Lafayette looking on and feeling her pain and stuff like that. And I felt it was really important they forgave each other and they understood each other.
I think it was a beautiful story. I think it was a really good way to wrap it up. I had two things which just kept bouncing to me, even when I said, I just want to enjoy this.
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy this. But then I just looked at it again and went, but there's this problem. Because on its all, it was beautiful. It was really good. It was some of Tara's backstory. It took Letty May out of her eternal role as comic relief, or at best someone who is deeply pitiable. It was beautiful. It was good on so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it just kind of made bad both elements of Tara's good upbringing yet again, which I think there's a bit of pathologizing going on there. But the main thing which struck me again is something which has been striking me all this season: too little, too late.
Yeah.
After killing Tara off so casually, after so many seasons of ignoring and neglecting, after so many seasons of Letty May being the comic relief, you then look and say, well, this is wonderful, this is great, and it would, but it's putting the cherry on top of the shit sundae. It's a wonderful, wonderful ending to a very bad. And this is something which has hit me a few times with season 7. You'd look at things and say, yes, at last this has happened. And you think, but there's only like 4 episodes left. It's like, And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, but everything is too little, too late.
Yeah.
Isn't it just? And there was nothing else there's nothing they could have done that wouldn't have given you that impression. Let's be honest. They screwed the pooch so badly throughout all of these seasons. Anything they did now would be too little, too late.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if we can. I think they brought on an entirely new writing cast for this last season. So I don't even know if we can blame them. They're working with what they've got, which isn't really great.
No. I think there's a few things which show that. Another good example, which is one thing that they haven't made better, is Violet. Because at the end of last season, she was problematic, but hey, you've got an old, powerful vampire who's a woman, not entirely defined by the man in her life, and not dead. And then in this season, she became entirely defined by the man in her life and dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, what got me is how she felt powerful. Her sex appeal is what made her feel powerful.
But at the same time, her sex appeal made her feel powerful and then became her greatest insecurity. And also a huge egomaniac. This whole idea that you should have been content spending your life worshipping the wonderfulness of me is just... Yeah, it's a case of... It became a parody of sexual empowerment.
Well, she should have been more than that. She really should have been more than that, right?
Yeah. Should have been so much more than what she is. And she could have been. I mean, she's what, at least 1,000-year-old vampire. She should have been a peer of Eric's. She had every reason to be a cat vampire of that potential. But on every stage they tried to undo her. Her power, her power was either insecure over Jason, presented as comic, or presented as disastrous. She was constantly insecure of Jason leaving, but didn't just use any real strength about it. There was no, there's no calling Jason on the carpet about it. She set up this elaborate supervillain revenge plot instead. She was constantly saying how strong she is, and then turning around to Jason demanding that he be the man of the relationship. And
I don't understand. I don't understand what they were trying to do with gender dynamics in that relationship. Only if it was to show that, look how wrong this woman is for Jason, yet another wrong woman that he chose. Therefore,
he should be with Jessica.
Exactly. And in the process, they turned her into. It's another example of a disempowered female vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only is she gonna get the woman who slept with her man, she's gonna get everyone that she's gonna create this big circle, and she's gonna have this great big drama about it.
She had a classic supervillain speech. I mean, frankly, if she was a man, she'd have a mustache and she'd be twirling it.
And allowing Hoyt to come in for the big save too.
I mean, seriously, this 1,000-year-old vampire was killed by Hoyt.
Oh goodness, who was I just find it hilarious. I found it comedic but sad.
It just looked to say this had potential, and now look at how True Blood has done it before. You've got every other powerful female vampire. Sophie Ann was a jerk. Nan Flanagan was a stereotype and dead.
We don't even want to talk about Pam.
Salome was ancient, obsessed entirely about sexuality and dead. Lilith became possessed Billif, so he didn't even.
Billif. Yes.
There's just no powerful female vampires on this show at all.
No, not well. See, the problem is, if they didn't have all these male vampires who were powerful and strong, it wouldn't matter that the female vampires are so bad off. But
exactly.
The problem is, you can always. Salome is for sure older than was for sure older than Eric. But Eric was constantly put into the position of power.
Exactly.
So they play the gender card continually, but yet want us to believe in this whole, the older you get, the stronger you get. That's not true. The older you get, the stronger you get if you're a man, but that's not the case if you're a woman, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And you've also got this fact that a lot of them die off. And all right, a lot of everyone dies off, but this is the problem: is a lot of them die off without any strength beforehand. I mean, when you look at how many of them who should have been Nora, Eric's sister, what did she do?
Well, she was there for Eric's angst.
Exactly. Extension of Eric. Pam, extension of Eric. Nan Flanagan, extension of the authority.
Uh-huh.
I see there was Salome, just a priestess, and look at the sexy more nude scenes. And when you compare that to Eric or Bill, I mean, about the only thing they've got is Jessica, but again, she is inherently in a childish role.
Uh-huh.
But she's like the only one who's
she's under Bill because she's Bill's daughter technically, or his progeny.
Exactly. It's just it's frustrating because you see so many of them, and it's another thing with anything which lasts as long as True Blood. 7 seasons, we've seen a lot of problems with women in general and female vampires in particular, which is glaring. And even the male villains who tend to die off, the main ones like Russell, the Authority, Roman, the Authority in the early season, they were powerful. They had many other tropes about them as well, but they were certainly powerful.
They were certainly people to be feared.
Exactly. Whereas, Violet was trying to be scary, but she became somewhat comic. No, it just didn't work. Did not work. When she died, my main reaction was, yes, get rid of her. We did not need that character
Well,
anymore.
yes and no, because when she died, it gave them permission to open up the
Oh,
Hoyt, Jessica, Jason love triangle again. And I'm just like, didn't we do this already? Didn't we do it to death?
yeah. The minute that happened, I said, no, don't, please, please don't do this.
Because it's bad enough we're gonna have the big who's Suki gonna choose, but we have to have a who Jessica gonna choose too.
Yeah. It's no thanks. And from there as well, we've also got this weird. I mean, remember that Hoyt has forgotten Jessica and Jason, so he's come to. He's come to Bon Tom's, and then he's sat next to Jason having Bria for breakfast, as you apparently do.
Oh, I know. I thought when I saw it, I was like, that must be a Southern thing.
But then again, it is American beer, so it doesn't really count.
It still tastes like beer, it just doesn't have the
Oh, I
strength.
don't know about taste like beer.
Well, it tastes something like beer,
It tastes like
right?
water from downstream from a polluting brewery.
Mm,
That's what I'm sticking
okay.
to. But yeah, but he's sat there saying, "Oh, let me tell you all about the fact that I really like this redhead." And oh yeah, even though you know I'm with a girl, I've got this girlfriend who was apparently comfortable enough about me to talk about having kids at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just tell you, complete stranger man, about the fact that I intend to pursue this random vampire I've just met. This is not a conversation you have with a stranger.
Yeah. Well, I think that she said it because she was comfortable saying it, right? I
Hmm.
think that's why she said it.
No, I
Um.
meant Hoyt to Jason.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which was it just because you're
I,
supposed to be strangers at the moment.
did you see the bro code though?
Oh yeah, strangers, and even though he's talking about cheating on his girlfriend, his main thing is to check to make sure this man he's never met before hasn't
Yes,
already staked his claim.
I do. Because Jessica's a possession, right? He
Uh-huh.
couldn't simply just say to Jessica, "Are you single?" He's got to be up to Jason, going,
Exactly.
asking Jason, "Is she yours?"
Exactly. And is she yours? No, why do you ask Jessica that? After all, she may have a different opinion on the matter, apart from anything else.
Hmm.
But but there is another thing of weird boundaries in this one. Even aside from the horrible bro code, which is horrible when it turns up, and so pervasive, with little things like, hey, we're going to sit around and look at Hoyt's baby pictures. Okay, people
Who
do
does
strangely
that?
sympathetic things, but yeah. But remember, particularly when you think, I mean, Bridget and Hoyt maybe, but his mother's dead, and I find that creepy anyway. No wonder he went off on a rant. But then Jason, I mean, Jason is a complete stranger to them both. Who just says, hey, come look at my baby pictures? Like, what the hell?
I know he's for someone who's forgotten, supposedly forgotten who Jason is. There's far too much familiarity going on. And every
Yeah.
once in a while, you hear him say, "Oh, the Stackhouse," right? As if they're trying to remind us that Hoyt doesn't remember. Well, if Hoyt doesn't remember, they need to make Hoyt act like Hoyt doesn't remember.
Yep, they need to not treat. He and Jason need to act like strangers, not like long lost friends.
Exactly.
And there's other weird things as well, which that whole thing, like he has an argument with Bridget. Jason, I know it's hard to believe, an actual police officer gets an apparent message of a dangerous case. He has to go on now, and Bridget says, "No, I'm not getting out your car." Are you serious, woman? You do
Hmm.
not decide to invite yourself on a police car ride along.
Well, why didn't he throw her out though?
Yeah, why didn't he
And
arrest her?
I mean, those are the things I was thinking. And I I just looked at her and I thought, you've got the sense of Suki.
Exactly. And that's Suki again. Eric visits her in the night, then he runs off. What does she do? She runs after him into the night without a phone, in her hair dressing gown, and barefoot. And you look at, why is this woman not dead?
Well, what he said, you're pretty brave and pretty dumb. I thought
Yeah,
the emphasis there is on dumb, right?
exactly. I just look at it, why? Why are you doing this? Why would anyone think this is okay? It's just this thing True Blood does so often. The characters will do things you just look at it, why?
I have no idea.
Uh, was a bright spot with Tara and Letty Mae. That scene was beautiful. I'm clinging to that. I also... Sorry, go on. Go.
Um, she's not dead because she's the magical Suki. She's the magical Suki Stackhouse. That is the answer to that question. They will never hold her accountable for the stupidity of her decisions.
She has plot
And
armor,
that's,
which is so solid.
yes. I mean, that's important, important to mention.
Exactly. There was another element I actually quite liked on this show, which has surprised me. When Jessica and Suki found Sarah in the
Oh,
basement,
yeah. I'm the
they
bitch you
hated her.
wanted raped. Hmm?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And you know what? I liked it because you saw a tough side of Jessica, which I think is really important because Jessica spent so much of this season moping. Oh my
Mm.
goodness. You know, I'm starving myself because I'm angsting.
Exactly. And then just having a turn around and say, yeah,
Oh.
I want to hurt you. But I also loved it because so much, particularly in the media, we have this sense of obligatory forgiveness. A good person forgives, even
Mhm.
if that person doesn't. Regardless of the situation, regardless of how wronged you've been, regardless of how little forgiveness is deserved,
Yeah.
a good person forgives, and it's seen as a character flaw for a good person not to forgive.
Well, that's just it. I mean, they put it in the context of, hey, all this shit has happened. We've been terrorized by these dying vampires and stuff. But how many parents do you know are going to be like, oh, you killed 3 of my kids? That's okay.
Exactly. And that was another thing we got there with this forgiveness and this idea good characters will forgive. And I did like the subversion here that here was Suki and Jessica, who are perhaps the two most quintessential good characters on this show, going to Sarah Newell and saying, you know what, I don't care if you're the cure or this wonderful thing, whatever. I don't care. You are evil. I mean, Suki left her imprisoned
I
in
know.
Fantasia. She said, I'm
I actually
leaving
was
you
shocked by
there.
that. I didn't
Exactly.
expect her to do that. I was actually kind of surprised that she didn't take her with her. Taking her with made more sense than leaving her there.
Yeah.
It really did.
I was beginning to wonder if that is actually was actually portrayal, or was this supposed to be to show, oh look how hard and cruel Suki's become? Because they did try that on a couple of other times as well.
Mm.
But still, I was kind of really happy to see. I was happy to see this was get away from this whole idea that, you know what, you don't owe this person forgiveness,
No, she doesn't owe that person forgiveness.
and that person hasn't earned forgiveness. So yeah, by all means. At no point were we supposed to say, "Oh, poor Sarah." We were. I think the whole show intended us to look on and go, "Yeah, you know what? You totally deserve it."
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Well, because what I liked about it is it just continued on the idea that this woman is a mass murderer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she can't go all new age religion and everything is okay. Now, of course, this is probably the atheist in me, but this by saying this whole I don't, you don't get to do washed in the blood of the lamb and I am sin free bullshit. You still have
Yeah.
to be held accountable, right?
Exactly. I mean, her whole. I mean, I loved it, the fact that her sister pointed that out as well when she tried to blame. No, it's a new me. I've changed. I'm a different person now. So no, 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 it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You don't get to just decide that your past didn't happen, no matter what revelation or right you've gone through.
Hmm.
There is a consequence.
Yeah, and it's important.
It is. I mean, particularly since we do have this culture of forgiveness. I mean, which again is often very religious based. And in some ways, I find the whole concept of it very shaming of victims.
Hmm. Because they didn't forgive.
Exactly. It gives victims a duty to forgive, and it devalues the anger and the pain of victims because they aren't allowed them.
Well,
Holding on to them is considered wrong.
yeah, and I call bullshit on that. I mean, as a marginalized person, how many cheeks do you have to turn?
Exactly. I mean, we say
Nuh-uh.
this is something which particularly hits marginalised people, and it's a destructive meme. And I'm wondering how many people never manage to get over anything or still haunted by things because they are
Well,
still because they have they haven't resolved it. They've decided that they have to forgive it, and at the same time, how many people are repeatedly victimized because every time they are that their victimizers repeat the same habits because there's no consequences because the magic sorry words is supposed to make it all okay again.
yeah, because it doesn't acknowledge the PTSD that comes from being in a situation where you're attacked.
Exactly.
Even the daily microaggressions of being a marginalized person can lead to situations where someone has PTSD.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be something big and obvious like being beaten for your marginalization or anything like that. It can be something that society considers small and insignificant, like street harassment. It can give
Mhm.
a woman PTSD and cause agoraphobia and her having fear of leaving the home. These things are real, they're just devalued. So that said, I don't agree. I don't agree that you know this should come along, and I think it's something good that they're having, particularly Jessica say
Yeah,
when she said, "You tried to have me raped." I think it was particularly good that Jessica was not forgiving of that, because if we're honest, there's some things that you cannot forgive.
exactly.
You
I
know?
love that. I love to see that this is something that said, yeah, actually, we're going to do this. We're going to say outright, no, this is not okay. This
Yeah.
is She is not forgiven. Her crimes aren't going to go away, and it's not a judgment on Jessica and Suki as bad people because they have refused to extend this warm, fluffy forgiveness to her.
Hmm. Can I just say there is, however, part of me that does feel a little sorry for the actress who plays Sarah Newland.
I
I do
always kind of
feel
feel
it.
sorry for any actor who plays a terrible villain because I mean, the person I feel most sorry for is Jack Gleason, who plays Joffrey. Oh,
Oh
he was.
goodness.
How does he live with the hate?
He was chased right out of the profession, Joffrey was,
Yeah. And you
right?
look at that, you go, ow. I mean, to be that hated is a sign of good acting, I suppose, but at the same
It
time, it's a
is.
case of, we hate you so much.
Well, the poor man couldn't even go to con, because of all the hatred, and literally driven out of his career and having to choose something else. I think that's pretty rough.
That's extremely rough, and it just shows you, and you look at some people who go, come on, behave.
Whereas you get someone, it's a different kind of hatred because you get someone like Russell, right? And the
Hmm.
fans love him. The more evil Russell is, the more the fans are just, ooh, gotta
I call
have him.
that glorious bastard syndrome. There are some
Yeah,
people who are evil, unrepentantly evil, and that they are so evil and so happily evil with it, and so gloriously evil. You just kind of go, yes, well done. I think, certainly in the early seasons, Gold on Once Upon a Time is another perfect example of a glorious bastard. Until he
yeah,
started to get a bit wubby. The minute they start being regretful and repentant and sad, they kind of lose it. But while they're at the top of their game, say, yeah, I'm evil, like it, deal with it.
you love it. You can't
You
help
love
but love
it.
it, eat it up. But where Jack Leeson never got to that stage, all we saw of him was a sniveling worm who was cruel for the sake of being cruel.
Yeah, he was contemptible as well as being evil, and that
Yeah,
doesn't work. The glorious bastard has to awe you. I think in some cases, like even Loki on Almighty Johnson's, I think some of the key ways they have to do it is they have to make them proud of what they do, completely unrepentant, and at the same time completely unambiguous. At
They
no
need to
point are we
be
supposed to see them as decent.
they need to be larger than life.
Yeah,
That's what they need to be. They legitimately need to be large for it to work. That's how they have to be. They have to be larger than life. And if they can't fulfill that, well, then it doesn't work.
yeah. And you need the actor to pull it off.
Yes, and it's not that Jack Gleason didn't pull it off. He most certainly pulled it off, but
Hmm.
they didn't give him enough. Joffrey was never going to be that guy. He was never going to be the larger than life type character that you need to fit into to that that role. You know,
Yeah.
we took more pleasure out of watching him be abused than
Hmm.
anything else, right? You know, and that's the
Well, this,
thing. Tyrion slaps him, and everyone is just, hit him again.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I don't think. I mean, I don't think. I think it was a good role. He was supposed to be pathetic. He was supposed to be a worm. I don't think it was a case of bad direction or anything like that. I think he wasn't meant to be a glorious bastard. Tywin was meant to be a glorious bastard.
Yes, he was. But I don't know that he inspired the same sort of feelings of a Russell at
Hmm.
all. I know that some people were still happy to see him dead, though.
Yeah. Oh, it was, but at the same time, it was a glorious ending. I wish they hadn't brought him back really from his tomb just to give him then that really kind of weak ending instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a letdown. It was a massive, massive letdown because they could have done so much more with him.
Hmm.
You know, it is what it is at this point. You
That's true
can't,
right all through.
you can't go back. As True Blood writers are quickly discovering as they're trying to clean up the mess that they have created.
Yep. Have we got more to do on True Blood, or should we move the move us forward a little?
Hang on, I'm just thinking for a quick.
Love dodecahedron, Violet, Tara and Letty Mate, beautiful scene. Suki being annoying, and Sarah Newling getting the hatred she deserves.
Yeah, I think that about covers True Blood.
Shall we step over to Defiance and the glory that is Starmer? All
The
hail.
Stama show.
Starmer.
Stama's gonna have some problems next week.
Kenya. I
Yep.
want to see how Starmer handles that. But I did quite like the fact that they started to question Star for terrorism, and the minute it even started, you just looked at it and went, yeah, this just isn't going to work.
Mm-mm. No, it was good.
And then after they've completely failed to question her, she quietly went over to Daytak, pulled his strings, and look, problem solved.
Oh, and then the man thinking that he could threaten her. You
Yeah.
know that we wouldn't put up with that, and I just thought, and who exactly is we?
Well, I like the fact that she didn't commit, but she did acknowledge his point because they did support him.
Yes, this is true.
They did support him at the risk of their own lives, and they're right. Daytak will probably forgive his wife and son, his men,
No, he'll murder.
but she just does it perfectly. This, I hear what you say. I've listened to what you say. I'm going to make the decision.
Yeah, I really don't. It's clear that Stama and Datak work well together.
Yes.
You know, they work very well together. And if Datak could have accepted her as an equal partner, well,
Hmm.
then none of this would have happened. The one thing that is certain right now is that Datak has learned to respect her. That is what this has taught him.
Yeah. So I think even if they did get back together, which has all kinds of fraughtness around it, but if they did, it would definitely be on a very different standing. It would
Yes.
be as equals, or maybe even Starmer as a more dominant partner. I even like the fact that Data was insulted that they didn't bother to question him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my, this is disrespectful.
I laughed my ass off because he's like, and on one hand, he doesn't want to be suspicious because he doesn't want to go back to jail. But on the other, how can they not think that Daytak Tar is a badass capable of some shit,
And they
right?
questioned his wife. I mean, that is clear intent to him, to everybody. Look who now controls the Tar Empire. Even the powers that be no longer consider Daytak worthy of respect. Or
Mm-hmm.
worthy of fear, which in Daytak's eyes is the same. And they go to Starmer to do with Starmer what they would normally do with him. She's the power now.
Exactly.
And it's lovely little hints like that that I really do like about Defiance. It really brings home, okay, it builds the picture.
Well, the thing is, it gives you, I love I guess what I love about it is that they're constantly reminding you how different Cast-a-fan culture is.
Mm-hmm.
And why these things are so important. They never let you forget for 1 minute who you're dealing with.
Which is particularly good because the Castifans, as far as aliens go, an appearance sake, are, I mean, they don't look particularly alien.
No, they don't.
But at the same time, the sense of their alienness comes through far stronger with them than it does with, say, the Liberator or the Sense of, which haven't been developed as much, but look more overtly alien.
Well, it's the culture, right? That you
Mm-hmm.
get with the Cast-a-fan that sort of
It just,
brings things around just a little.
yep, it does constantly hammer home. These people aren't human. These are not the same as everyone else in Defiance. They are other.
Exactly. And you know what? They're interesting in a way that, who are those other people?
Irafian?
Yes, the Irathians are not to me. I'm not interested in the Irathians. Their religious storyline is bogged down, and I find myself not caring. And this week again, I knew it was supposed to be a big development when all those people that she had, I guess, infected
Yeah.
came and found her. But yet I found myself sitting there going, yeah, don't care, move on.
The Irafian culture doesn't work so much for me, is even though they have probably put as much effort into characterizing Irafian culture as they have Castafan culture. The problem is I find that Irafian culture very much fits a basic stereotyped generic shaman nature worshippers.
It's too religious. That's what it is for me. I can't get into it.
It seems so, as it is, it's just it fits a stereotype. It is a very much a stereotype you'd find in any generic people of the plains nature worshipping shaman fantasy book. So, I mean, there's nothing particular. There's not as much detail there. I mean, with the example given, like you say, it's religious. They rely a lot on religion. They continually talk about Irazu, their god, or
Hmm.
one of their gods. What is Irazu the god of? Is Irazu the only god? And the god talking all about this religion which invites them, but we still don't actually know if they are a polytheistic or monotheistic society for all
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
We don't know if it's. I mean, I think they have more than one, and in which case we should ideally know what Irazu is. And this is the thing: if you're going to if you're going to create, like, if it was with the Castifans, we learn all the detail that makes a culture, whereas with the Irafians, the what this bedrock of their culture, their religiosity, is a name. It's a name they use a lot, but it is still a name.
That's the point. I can't get into it because of it. I really don't care. For me, it all boils down to hocus pocus.
So I think I could see the culture if it was built. If they were going to build a culture around it, it needed more foundation for me, and it didn't. It doesn't help that the only close Irafian character we follow around is obviously alienated from her culture, which I think is another point they've kind of missed out on.
Mm-hmm.
They started it in season 1, but then they kind of let it wither, which is unfortunate, because in the beginning they did make a big thing about how Irissa was hurt by being separated.
Yes. Well, not anymore because the Rathians seem to be coming out of everywhere.
Yeah, but we don't focus on them a lot. They're just Irathians.
They're just sort of a mob,
hmm
you know?
Whereas the Castifans, we know about their interactions, we know about their culture, we know about their opinions, their beliefs, we know how they'll react in several situations,
You can
we know about
predict
their
them.
pride, their caste system.
You can predict them. You can predict what they're
Exactly.
going to do, right? Like when at the end of last season, he started talking down to Daytak, you knew immediately that Daytak was not going to put up with that.
Yeah.
And
And,
it
sorry.
said, you looked at the situation and thought, that's not how you talk to a Castifan. Not if you
Exactly.
want to live.
You can't talk to them like that and expect cooperation. You cannot dominate a Castifan that way, because they will die first. So yeah, it's an interesting contrast in details.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something good about Defiance. I'll tell you one thing I also quite liked about Defiance this episode, which surprised me. They took a very classic scenario, which we've seen in so many gritty terrorist shows. Oh, look, there's a bomb in a major civil metropolitan process. We have to torture people, and look, this is why torture is a last resort, but it has to be on the table. We can't just say no torture at any kind, because it didn't work.
You sort of cut out for me. Would you mind saying that again, please?
A lot of times we do see these gritty terrorist shows where you will get this scenario where you have a bomb in the major metropolitan area, and it's a
Yes.
case of the protagonist, who is good and noble, turns around and says, "It's no good. I'm going to have to resort to torture because we have no choice. So many lives are at stake," and it's
It's
supposed to
typical.
justify it.
It, so you're saying the problem. See, I think the problem with that scene was they said torture won't work because he's too tough, and not torture won't work because it's cruel, it's
hmm
inhumane, and you never get honest answers anyway. People just start telling you whatever they think you want to hear that will make the pain go away. So there was the fact that it was missing the moral element of, hey, you shouldn't torture this guy because it's wrong, and B, you're not likely to get any good information out of him anyway.
And they did show the moral quandary, but still, that's less torture is wrong and more these guys are just good. But one thing I did like is it didn't work. It was not torture that made him speak. And that's what I was at least pleased to see. Particularly in this case, I mean, a lot of people use this. There's a bomb going to go off in 8 hours. What are you going to do? You must resort to torture, surely. So, what, they can't lie for 8 hours?
Hmm.
They can't tell me it's somewhere it isn't for 8 hours? Every time they tell me it is somewhere, I have to go check it out. I have to go look it up. I have to go investigate. They could kill 8 hours very easily.
Yes, especially depending on how far they're sending you.
Exactly. So I was glad it didn't work. I wish there had been more moral question, but I was glad it didn't work. I was more interested in Amanda's conflict, because
And
that was
man,
one. Yeah, Amanda and trying to save her sister.
yes, it pushed Amanda back into the maternal role again.
Yep.
And I didn't like it. I'm going to be honest and say I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I feel that Amanda has really. Wait. No, am I confusing him? No, I'm thinking of the. Which one was the former mayor?
Amanda.
Okay, then I am thinking of the right person. I got confused for a moment. Um, I didn't like it that they put her back into the maternal type role again, because I felt that while her sister was gone, her character had grown quite a bit, and I think we're going to now with her sister back, with Kenya back. I think we're going to lose some of that growth,
There's a very good chance of it. She's
right?
going to revert to type.
I really think she is. And I don't want to see that because I think that she's come a long way. She put herself in Amanda's situation, taking over Amanda's business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, she's a lot more open-minded, and I think she's more of a real person to me now than
Yeah,
she was before. And I think putting her back in putting her back in that um, position is only going to make her only going to cause her to revert. I don't think there's going to be any good. I don't think there'll be any good.
there'll be. I don't know. I mean, I know I agree that there's a very good chance of this being a hot mess. I'm clinging to the idea that with what we've seen with other characters, Defiance writers do have the skill to bring what she was and what she's become together in an interesting new whole. It's just whether or not they do it. I agree with your worry. I understand your worry. I don't think it's necessarily inevitable, but I fear it might be.
I think
If
it's
that makes
inevitable
sense.
with her. I really do. I think it's inevitable with her. She's going to play the type, and she just started to step out of type. That's the part that kind of makes me sad about it.
I don't want her to become. She was like a kind of a den mother to everyone.
Well, exactly, and that's boring.
Yeah, it's not going to work, and it's been done, and there's more to it than that. So here's hoping. Here's hoping. I think we can hope, but not much more.
I think that you're far more generous than I. But I think it's gonna be a. I think this is gonna be a problem. Big
Shall
problem for her.
yeah? Shall we move on to Witches of East End?
Sure, shoot.
Oh, too many storylines, and everyone has to have one, which is a problem.
Okay, I don't care about Wendy's love life.
No,
I seriously could not. I mean, things keep going wrong, so obviously there's some spell going on that's like screwing with her mojo. But do you really care if Wendy gets laid or not laid? I don't care.
especially, I mean, reminds me of season one where everyone was fighting for their life against someone hunting them, and every now and then we'd take a break so we could look at Freya's love life. Because no one cares about Freya's love life.
Yep, don't care. I don't care, and it needs to. It's. I don't understand why it feels. Okay, I don't understand why this show feels the need to be so busy. And I think it's yet another symptom of the fact that it doesn't know what it is yet.
I
It's
think. Sorry, go on.
I don't think Witches of East End has decided whether they're going to go camp or be serious, and this is why we continue to have too many storylines open. They're hedging their bets.
I also think Witches of East End hasn't quite understood how to work an ensemble cast. Because it's clear they do not want a protagonist. They don't want one of these four women to be the protagonist. They want them all to be protagonists. But as we've
I
seen,
don't know about that. I don't know that I agree that's what they're trying to do, but go ahead.
I think they're trying to keep them all important in the same way that's like Switch did, and the same way that Being Human did. The problem is that those shows made it very clear how you did it. Some weeks you focused on one character. Some
Hmm.
weeks the other characters took a step back. Witches of East End is trying to keep all four moderately prominent by having all four of them have storylines every episode. No
Yeah.
one's allowed to be the sidekick in anyone else's story.
No, heaven forbid.
And I think that's a problem. You can't have, particularly if you're going to have them all so closely linked, because that's actually one thing I think Witches of East End does really good. They really do bounce off each other well as a family.
Yes, you
Really,
feel very much that you feel at least between the women
yeah.
you feel that they have a good family. It's written well, it's acted well. It reminds me of that those ridiculous rhyming witches from the
Oh,
90s.
Charmed.
Yes, in that sense, you believe that the Charm sisters were sisters.
Yep.
You
And
also
this,
believe, yeah,
yeah, Freya and Ingrid are definitely Freya and Ingrid are sisters. Wendy and Joanna are sisters. Joanna and the two younger witches are definitely mother-daughter. You can feel it, and it's one thing they really do well, which I think kind of underscores how badly they did with Victor.
Mm-hmm.
And to a degree Frederick as well, 'cause I'm not feeling it. Victor as Joanna's husband, he's not been around long enough for me to care, or to believe Joanna cares. I can't see Ingrid or Freya seeing him as a father because he's just too absent. We haven't seen enough of him, which is why I think this whole, oh look, he died for Freya, which I still think is a bit silly since Freya resurrects.
Yeah.
The whole thing, I look at it and go, there's no emotional impact there because there's no emotional connection to Victor. I think that's really glaring with the powerful emotional connection all the women have.
I didn't feel Frederick. Okay, two things. I didn't feel any urgency from Frederick when he saw his father.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he didn't even act with much urgency when it was Freya. He's
Mm-hmm.
the square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and it doesn't work. And Victor's the same thing. I think we're better off rid of him because they didn't really tie them all together very much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Victor with his daughters and his wife, they didn't really. It didn't feel like there was a tie-in.
Exactly. They didn't fit. They didn't gel. They didn't make the relationship work.
Exactly. So when he ended up dying, and can I just say I thought it was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Even as a parent, I thought that was stupid. And the reason I thought it was stupid is because he knows his kid isn't going to die.
Exactly. We need to die to save Freya. She's immortal. She's quite literally invulnerable.
What are you worried about? So she goes back to the infant stage again. I don't think that there's a parent out there that looks at their child as they grow up thinking, oh, I wish you were still in diapers and all cooey and gooey with your chunky cheeks. All parents do it. So and it obviously would, being a bomb, it would have been boom. She wouldn't have felt a thing, and then Joanna would have been pregnant, and the process starts all over again.
Mm-hmm. Particularly when you
So
think these are immortal beings. I mean,
exactly.
these people have lived for centuries, perhaps longer. And if they've
Yeah.
lived that long,
Mhm.
surely, 20 years for Freya to get back to where she is now?
It's nothing. But
Exactly.
his reasoning is, well, Freya never lived this long before. So
So?
she's lived longer than most people. She's lived longer than anybody else is going to get a chance to live. So this notion of, oh well, she's never lived this long. Please, come on.
I'm not going to say that Freya dying wouldn't be a sacrifice or wouldn't be sad, but
I don't think so.
it's
Not when she gets to come
temporary.
right back. Well, not when she gets to come right back.
Yeah?
Freya dies, right? And then by the end of the day, Ingrid dies. And 9 months later, you're holding that baby in your arms. What more do you want?
It would be sad, it would be unfortunate, but it would be a setback. It wouldn't have been tragic, it would have been irritating.
Well, the reason they can't do it is because then they'd have to reset the story and
Yeah.
have Joanna would then become the protagonist, raising two magical daughters. And they didn't want to do that because obviously storylines you can write far more interesting storylines for grown women than you can for infant girls.
Yeah.
That's exactly why they didn't want to do it. But doesn't mean it means then they shouldn't have set up a situation that was so plain stupid
Hmm.
to
And
begin with.
on the storylines which just don't work, I also don't get Frederick playing this solo all the time. Particularly when he knew there was these terrible people out there, because he's trying to earn trust back, and I don't really see how keeping secrets is going to help him with that.
Well, I think the idea here is that Frederick just constantly makes bad mistakes. If
Yeah.
there's a choice between two things, Frederick is always going to choose the wrong thing. So this
Mm-hmm.
once again establishes this in our mind. He threw the key back through the portal. He sided with his grandfather. He let go of his mother's hand, and now he's caused his father to die. He's a series of disaster, one step after another.
Mm-hmm. There will now be the whining and the angsting and the man pain.
Well, yes, there's for sure some
Ah.
man pain, but he's had since he did that whole thing siding with his grandfather. He's had 2,000 years to get his head. Well, not 1,000 years, right? Is it a
Something
thousand
like
years
that.
he's had to get his head together? How can 1,000-year-old individual be so dense?
Well, this is, I think, a thing a lot of shows do badly when it comes to ancient people. They don't make them zen enough. I personally think if you're 1,000 years old, you would either be completely alien, but I think you'd be rather detached. When it comes down to it, whatever happens today, most of it would not actually be relevant in 20 years' time, which is no time at all to you. So
Right.
how can you bring yourself to care?
They wouldn't have any urgency about anything. You know.
Exactly.
Well, unless of course you're Doctor Who, and that's a different story.
Well, that's usually because what rests on Doctor Who isn't. It's usually very dramatic consequences.
Exactly, but this is not the case. So I think that they need to. I understand why the girls are so young because they have to start over each time. But I think Wendy should be older than she is. I believe Joanna should be older than she is. She's older only in the sense that she's maternal, but she's not older in the sense of the age that she actually
Yeah.
is.
I
And
think they
reading
could.
this
Sorry, go on.
and watching this, I often think about Kevin Hearn.
Hmm. He's quite good
And
at throwing out Atticus's age really well.
exactly, because you have these lines, where he's doing his cover and he's this sort of young college kids and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, Atticus' expression will change, and you'll know you're dealing with an ancient being. And I almost think that they should read some Kevin Hearn and figure it out,
Yeah.
because I don't buy these two women as ancient beings, and I understand them having to keep a cover when they're in public, but they don't work for me. They're only older in the sense of maternal. They don't give you a sense of being ancient, and that's two different things.
I think they would have. I actually think Wendy is closer simply because she has a more carefree, who cares attitude to life, which I can see as a reaction to immortality. I can see
Mhm.
that irresponsibility
Mhm.
being an important reaction to it, because again there's this whole sense of, well, in 50 years time who'll care, but they need
Mhm.
to work on it more and make it seem that it is a perspective of someone who's lived for 1,000 years rather than the whims of a teenager or someone
Yeah.
who's never quite grew up. On other storylines that don't work, I can see Dash and Killian making up. I'm coming out with that. I can see Dash and Killian experimenting with magic because, frankly, if you had magic, you would. I
Mhm.
can't see them going for a random spell at random without consulting Ingrid so soon after Dash accidentally killed someone.
I can. I can. I believed it. I believed it 110% because Dash is nothing if not arrogant, and he trusted his medical school Latin to pull him through. He's that kind of character.
But to me, it kind of broke it. It made me look at him in a very case of, okay, where's your moral compass? Because I'd expect at least a little wariness. He has used his experience with magic to date has been something that has left him hallucinating and
Mhm.
something that has literally been completely out of his hand. It,
Mhm.
even if he went ahead of it, I could see them going ahead of it, but I'd have expected more hesitation, or more doubt, more questioning.
Yeah, no, I bought it. I bought it completely. I buy that more than the two of them suddenly kiss and make up.
I can see the kiss and make up because of the relevant great of the recent bereavement and the fact on Dash's side there's the reason, not on Dash, on Killian's side he's just found out his mother's dead, which is going to be a huge storm of emotion anyway. And plus, Killian how to put it, Dash was the wronged party, as it were, in that argument between them. Particularly since Dash doesn't remember, Killian doesn't remember Dash killing him, or trying to kill him.
Yes.
So as far as Killian's concerned, their upset is that Freya left Dash at the altar for him.
Okay.
Which means Killian doesn't particularly have a reason to be angry with Dash. Dash has a reason to be angry with Killian. And on Dash's side, I can see the forgiveness because he thought Killian was dead. And I think if you think someone's dead and then they actually come back, it's a whole emotional reset button.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe. I just know I don't like them getting along.
I don't know. I actually would rather have them get along. I could do without that sense of drama. With everything else that's going on in the show, I could do without Killian Dash squabbling.
I sort of think of them as Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
But prettier.
I suppose. But annoying.
I think so. I want to know where they're going to go. The thing that annoys Victor and Frederick at the moment annoy me far more. I also am getting tired of them saying Victor's chanting ancient Norse, so that does not sound even remotely like a Nordic language.
What are they doing? They can't make up their mind. One point I didn't like that the spell was in Latin. What are they doing?
If the Norse gods... Oh, and then again, you've got Isis, who is an Egyptian deity.
Yeah. So, what are they doing? Here? Pick a pantheon. Pick a pantheon and stick with it. They've spent all this time giving us clues about the Norse, and now all of a sudden we've got Latin. These two things don't go together.
And then Egyptian deities. Are we going with the fact that all of the witches are deities? Is every pantheon true?
I don't know, but I know that it's annoying me. I feel like I'm being teased each week because I really would love to see the Norse thing come and go. Come out and really go for it, because the only one that has done it before is the Almighty Johnson. Mm-hmm. So this would be absolutely new territory if they were to go there, but they're not.
Yeah, it's frustrating because we want to see what's going to happen. We're getting hints, but we're not getting more. The pacing is off. But I think we're going to have to move on to our book of the week.
Okay, go.
Divergent was our book of the week by Veronica Roth.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the hugest fan of this book, but I wasn't a huge fan of this book for very different reasons than most people have not been a huge fan of this book. I know there's a lot of people complain that the concept of this world is broken, that this society couldn't work, it was ridiculous, there was no way this could ever stop a war, and this society is not working. How could anyone think society works? But I think that's kind of the point. I think that's a feature, not a flaw. The whole point of Divergent is that the society they've created after the war is broken. It is a gross compromise between five inherently oppositional cults, and they're cults, brainwashing cults, and the only reason the people fit inside each cult is because they're brought up and brainwashed and policed into these roles. It isn't natural. It isn't how humans are. No human could work within them. The factions don't work. Their principles are overly simplistic and often warped.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't because it's badly written and badly built. I think it's because it's trying to show us a dystopian. This is a society that is inherently broken and cannot work. The reason I think it doesn't necessarily convey that well is because there's a lot of hints throughout the book as to how bad it is. Things like an abnegation, one of the selfless ones, is a child abuser because and gets away with it because no one will believe it of him. Because of his abnegation. Yeah. Or there's the Candor boy who, as a child, instigated all kinds of chaos because no one believed that he would lie. And
And
you can see the flaws. And just look at the Dauntless. The Dauntless are a train wreck. They mistake courage for cruelty. They mistake
hmm
courage for reckless foolishness. And to the Dauntless, someone who jumps off a high place and hits his head on rocks is brave,
when it's
whereas everyone
actually
else is
just stupid.
stupid. Exactly. And this is this idea. Self-preservation is considered cowardice. Bullying is considered bravery. Sadism is considered bravery. I say only it's
Well,
clear that this
their
society is
idea is
broken.
preparation, right? Constant preparation for what may come.
Exactly. And we see, but at the same time, it's they're turning themselves into an oppressive force.
Yeah,
And
they're the faction that scares me the most.
because they will do anything, no matter how cruel, because the idea of hesitating to do anything would be seen as cowardice to them.
Well, forming a plan,
Is
even
cowardice.
they
And
just leap.
sorry.
They just leap right in.
And then you look at abnegation, where we see from Triss's childhood that this doctrine of selflessness is used almost like a bludgeon for selfish ends. I mean, Triss's father is never questioned because that would be selfish. She did barely have the chance to even talk to him because he has to lend him her ears. There is this selflessness is used as a constant police to force them into a certain role.
Hmm.
So I think it actually has a potential to be a really fascinating world, but unfortunately, we spend far too much time on a really vapid, unnecessary romance.
I think it's the romance is there not to not to build the story. The romance is there for because of who the audience is supposed to be.
It's YA, it's a female protagonist, you must have.
That's why that's why it's there.
Hmm.
That and no other reason.
I think that is something which annoys me a lot. And another one is the Divergent. We had a great story of people who didn't fit in this terrible society trying to fight against an evil and terrible plot, which just shows you how far the society is broken. This would be a great story about the society. Instead, it became a story about how special and chosen one Triss is, because Triss is divergent, which makes her special and makes her immune to mind control and makes her pure and good and right. Or maybe
Well,
not
yes,
pure and good,
special
but
cookie.
and that's I
Special
think
cookie
why.
because the protagonist has to be that special cookie.
And that's it.
And in YA particularly, that's what ends up happening.
And to me, this is the problem. They had a really good high potential story here, and they even had a good character. I found her interesting. I found her flawed. I found her not overly perfect. I found her had good relationships with decent friends, but then they had to stomp these YA tropes all over it.
Hmm.
And you look at it and go, well, why? It didn't need this. It doesn't want this. It doesn't work to have this.
Because this is the problem with it. I mean, I think YA more than any other. Well, actually, I think it's a tie between YA and paranormal romance when it comes to formulaic writing.
Mm-hmm.
There are no surprises. They follow a formula from start to finish. It's only a surprise when they step outside of that expected, you know, super special chosen one, falls in love with a guy, but things can't go too far. Teenagers can't have sex in YA, even though they're having it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this super special love that's meant to be, and they're going to be together forever and ever. Just after they get over the few complications that are thrown in their way, and isn't romantic because now guess what? Their love is going to save the world. That's YA.
And it's sad because when you get a one which breaks it, because this is the thing, I'm looking at this story and saying this could have been so much better if you just hadn't done it. You could have written a really good story if you just had Four respect her as the skilled and capable person she is with high potential, not because he found her attractive. Have a story focusing on the world and a popular revolution and having to fight against this as normal people, rather than giving them the special woo-woo. There was another element in this Divergent which I see a message there which I did not like. I admit to being somewhat alert to it because the forward to the book, when it's I thank people, the acknowledgements. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is God and your son Jesus. So I was somewhat looking out for the trope.
Yeah.
And you have the erudite. The erudite are atheistic, intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
curious,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes them egomaniacal and arrogant and manipulative because they're intelligent and they value knowledge. And then you have the abnegation, who are the only ones who profess any kind of faith, who are insulted by the head of the erudite as being god botherers, yet at the same time produce all the divergent who are immune to intellectual mind control. And they're the ones who are being destroyed by the evil, egotistical science intellectuals. And even further to this, part of the selflessness of abnegation is lack of curiosity, because curiosity and learning is selfish. And tell me there isn't a trope there. Tell me that is not even a subtle message.
It's a massive message. And you know that it's a
Yeah.
massive message.
Is it science is evil, science and education is terrible, it leads you astray, curiosity and thinking is terrible. You need to be
But
divergent and escape the evil traps of science brainwashing.
don't think don't think for yourself, basically.
Exactly. If you do, you're being selfish.
Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. Everything that is wrong with this book is what was right with the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to. This is a cheap Hunger Games ripoff, um, cashing in on what was a successful model and not pulling it off nearly as well.
Yeah.
Um,
it is kind of sad because it would have been. It had high potential, but there were problems.
yeah, it's not believable. It's just not believable. I think that's what it comes down to. And I don't think I can connect with the protagonist. That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
I don't feel like I could connect.
I didn't hate it. I'll give it that though. At least I didn't hate it.
Well, that's good because guess what?
There's two more to
Yeah,
come.
there's two more to come.
Oh well, it's not Anne Rice.
Well, you're such a wimp where that's concerned.
Mm-hmm. Not Anne Rice.
Wimp.
Oh, also it goes without saying this book could have used a pretty hefty whack of diversity.
Well, yeah. It's dystopian. Did you really expect any diversity, though?
Exactly.
Even though the stupid thing is set in Chicago, I think.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Chicago, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's.
because, there's no. Chicago's all white and all straight, which,
I
is
think there
something
was
I think we
maybe.
should tell. I think we should tell this to the right wing Republicans when they start going on black crime in Chicago. We should show them this book because it says right there Chicago is all white.
Mm-hmm. It would. It's terrible because I think we had Christina, who was a decent character, and maybe one of the instructors, but that was two out of quite a large amount of characters.
If you count them all up, it doesn't. It's nowhere near a balance. It's
Exactly.
the having like these two in Chicago is the equivalent of setting a story in San Francisco and having one GLBT person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the equivalent of that.
Yeah. And I was saying it's Chicago as well, and there was no LGBT people at all. Not one. And the thing is as well is it's quite a large cast.
Hmm. Which is good because you know that they'll be doing the whittling down. You can already sort of
Mm-hmm.
tell who's going,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
it
that's
just
why it's done that way.
yeah, and it's just so frustrating.
It's exactly why it's done that way.
But
So
I
they can
won't
whittle
hate
down.
the next episodes.
Are you sure?
I think so. I think I will maybe not like them, but I don't predict hating them.
Hmm. Well, I think it's a wait and see. I think it'll be tolerable. I think that's what you're going to get, tolerable.
Considering what I've seen, I can live with tolerable.
I think asking for more than that is not recognizing the limitations of the world itself. It'll be tolerable, and it'll, you know what, forgettable, like every other YA novel. Well, like, excuse me, like most other YA novels that I have read.
So we never know. Maybe it'll shock us. We could do.
Um,
It's not going to though.
I don't know.
But with that time, our book of the week for next week is by Chloe Neal. What is it? It's come on, where have I lost it? I've
I'm
lost it.
actually excited. Merit.
Yeah, I'm interested. I won't say excited. Well, it's Blood Games by Chloe Neal.
I'm excited, even though I know it's probably going to put me in a pissy mood. I'm still excited. And even
I'm
though I feel that way going into every Chloe Neal novel, to be perfectly honest. That's exactly how I feel. And then I remember why I hate Ethan, and then why Merrick gets on my nerves. And I'm content to wait another 6 months before the book comes out. But I'm always excited beforehand for some reason.
Let's hope that your excitement is at this point actually justified.
It never has been. So why would it be this time?
It's always the
Right?
first time.
No. I don't know why it makes me excited to see what's going to happen in this world. Maybe because I think that it's okay, I legitimately believe that it's got potential.
Mm-hmm.
But usually by the time I'm a third of the way through the book, I think, oh, she's doing it again. She's
Mm-hmm.
not growing, and I hate Ethan, and I can't stand Merritt, and that's that. You
Well,
know?
mm-hmm. We shall have to see. Let us hope.
Okay, yes, let us hope.
Anyway, that is our book for next week. That is Blood Games by Chloe Neal. Throughout the week, we'll be following all of our old shows. We'll probably be talking next week about Dominion's season finale. We've got a lot coming up to the end of their run, so we'll see how that works out. As ever, you will find all of our book reviews, television recaps, and everything else on the blog, fangsandfantasy.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Goodreads, Book Likes, Library Thing, Facebook, and anywhere else we can get our hands on, all under the handle Fangs of Fantasy. You're easy to find us, and all the links are on the blog, fangsandfantasy.com. Our next podcast will be here next week, same time, same place. I hope to see you all there.
Have a good week, everyone.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.